Hi, hello, namaskara. Welcome back, viewers, to another episode of my channel. It's the beginning of the new tax year for all of us. Not anymore previous year assessment year. It's a tax year 2026-27. This episode will discuss and get to know some of the TDS compliance provisions which you have to comply as an individual salaried taxpayer. Agenda for today, it is house property related provisions 194 IB, capital gains related some of the provisions 194 IA and 194 S, and then summary and some key takeaways from the session. Okay, let's start with the house property 194 IB. So what is 194 IB? It is relating to payment of rent by certain individuals or Hindu undivided family. The old section is 194 IB. In the new Act 2025, it is numbered as 393. Right? It is any income by way of rent should be the nature of income, and payer should be person other than specified person. We'll go through the specified person definition and who gets included there. And then rate is TDS rate is 2% and threshold is 50,000 for a month or a part of the month. In the new act, there is a table of TDS for payments to residents. Under that, the serial number 2 is the rent relating to this particular provision. And criteria is the rent should be greater than 50K per month or part of the month, and PAN is mandatory, and the TDS rate is 2%. If PAN is not available, then it will be 20% straight away, which is 10 times the normal rate, and it has to be individual HUF paying the rent. And then as per the section 402 interpretation, is specified person means there is a not being an individual or HUF, or an individual or HUF whose total sales, gross receipts or turnover from the business or profession carried on by him exceed 1 crore rupees in business, or 50 lakh rupees in case of profession during the tax year immediately preceding the tax year in which such income or sum is credited or paid. In simple words, individuals HUF not liable under audit, paying rent exceeding 50,000 per month to a resident. You have to deduct TDS at 2% on rent for the last month of the financial year or tenancy period, whichever is earlier. So TDS deducted only once per year. It's not monthly requirement. At payment credit of rent for last month of the financial year 2026-27, which is for example, full year rent is 7.2 lakhs, 60,000 per month. While paying 60,000 per month, you don't have to deduct every month. Instead of that, while paying the rent for the month of March, you have to calculate the TDS applicable for the entire annual rent, which is in this case it is 7.2 lakh, and 2% of that is 14,400. So that is the TDS amount which you have to deduct from 60,000 while making the payment for March, and then make the remaining payment. Then after deducting the TDS of 14,400, what you will do, you will deduct from March 2027 payment and deposit via Form 26 QC on income tax portal by uh, April 30th, 2027 Chalan come statement, which is a Chalan come statement. That means 30 days from the end of the month in which you have deducted the TDS, you have to make the payment. So let's move on to capital gains 194 IA. So what does this provision say? If you are planning to buy a plot or land, then this slide will help you to comply with the TDS provisions. So section 393, old section is 194 IA. There is a payment on transfer of certain immovable property other than agricultural land. So nature of income or sum, any consideration for transfer of any immovable property other than agricultural land. Who payer should be person other than the person who are required to deduct tax under serial number 3, right? And we'll go through relating to that. And then TDS rate is 1%. Threshold is 50 lakh rupees, and as per note 3, right? So it should be 50 lakhs and above. So rate is 1% of consideration for transfer of the immovable property or stamp duty value of such property, whichever is higher, either the sale consideration as per the sale deed or the stamp duty value on which you are paying the stamp duty. That is the value which you have to consider for calculating the 1% or the value, total value. And then which is excluded, it is if it is land is on account of compulsory acquisition, this provision is not applicable for them. All other people had to follow or comply with this TDS provisions. And then once you deduct 1% of the total value as described above, either of the consideration for for transfer of the immovable property or stamp duty value of such property, whichever is higher, 1% of that amount will be deducted as TDS, and then it has to be filed in form number 26 QB filing, which is a mandatory. It is a challan cum statement. It's a single form. There is a payment plus return. No separate TDS return is required. No TAN required. Only PAN of buyer and seller required. TDS rate rises to 10% if seller has no PAN. 30 days when you have to remit the TDS amount. 30 days from end of the deduction month. For example, if you are making the payment on 15th April 2026, and due date will be 31st May 2026. So late filing is charges are applicable, 200 per day, capped at TDS amount. Failure to deduct 1% per month interest deducted but not deposited, then also you will have to pay 1.5% per month interest. Non-filing penalty also it is there. It is 10,000 to 1 lakh rupees. So note 1, it is a consideration. So what is that we have understood what is the consideration which has to be taken, whether it is consideration or the stamp duty value. But while calculating that consideration for the transfer of any immovable property under serial number 31 shall be the aggregate of the amounts paid or payable by all the transferees to the transferor, or all the transferors to for transferor of such immovable property for the purposes of the threshold limit mentioned in column D. So 50 lakh rupees, it is a cumulative and not by individual transferor or transferee. It doesn't go by that. It has to be total value of the transaction which comes into the picture, or the total stamp duty value of the transaction comes into the picture. So let's move on to the next section 194S, which is under capital gains. This is relating to section is same section 393, old section is 194S, serial number 8, and which is relating to payment on transfer of virtual digital asset, right? It is nature of income is any sum by way of consideration for transfer of a virtual digital asset. Payer can be any person, and the rate is 1%. Threshold limit is nil, right? So what is virtual digital asset? It includes crypto assets, NFTs, and similar blockchain digital assets recognized under the tax law framework. And the TDS provision applies when any person pays consideration to a resident for transfer of such assets. The TDS rate is 1% of the consideration, and the rule applies even to peer transfers, not just exchange based transactions. So who deducts the for specified persons, reporting is generally through form 26 QE, while other deductors typically report through form 26Q. So, person responsible for paying the consideration must deduct the tax, but in practice, the responsibility can shift depending on whether the transaction is direct or through an exchange or through a broker. If it is through exchange or broker, it will be taken care, because in exchange facilitated trades, exchange often handle operational compliance, while in direct buyer seller transfers, the buyer may have to deduct the TDS. Only in this case where there is a direct buyer seller transfers, the buyer may have to deduct the TDS. In special cases, if consideration is wholly or partly in kind or in another VDA, tax must be ensured before releasing the asset, because the law requires TDS to be collected even when there is no full cash component. For specified persons, reporting is generally through Form 26 QE, while other deductors typically report through Form 26Q. For example, if a resident sells crypto worth 2 lakh, the buyer or platform must deduct 2000 as TDS at 1% of the total value and deposit it with the government, subject to the threshold rules. This TDS is not the final tax on gains, it is only a collection mechanism, while the actual taxability of VDA income is determined separately under the VDA tax regime. So I have tried to present it in a summary form, all the three provisions what we have discussed, which is applicable for the salaried individual. It is first one is on the 194 1 IB rent payment. It is 2% threshold is 50,000 per month or part of the month. Deductor is non-audit individual or HUF. It's a once in a year or on while vacating the premises. So TDS certificate is Form 16C. Timeline is by April 30th. If you are making the deduction in March, by April 30th, you have to remit the amount with the government. And there is no TAN required. And all the three cases, there is no TAN required. In case of 194 IA 26 QB, it is relating to property purchase, 1% of the total value. Threshold is 50 lakh rupees. Any buyer per transaction, it is form is 16B. Then 30 days from the end of the deduction month. And TAN required, no. In case of 26 QE, it is 194S relating to transfer of virtual digital assets, 1% of the total value. Earlier it was there was a threshold of 10,000 or 50,000 for specified person. Now it is there is no threshold. Any amount, it is 1% applicable. Deductor should be any person. Frequencies per transaction, Form 16E, and 30 days from end of the deduction month, and there is no TAN required. In the previous summary, we have seen there are four different forms, different transactions under Income Tax Act 2025. It is all clubbed into one form, which is form number 141, which is a PAN based challan income statement for reporting and depositing the TDS. Right, so what is the purpose? Form number 141 is a PAN based challan income statement for reporting and depositing the TDS deducted under the following sections. So what are the sections? What we have discussed, one is the Schedule A relating to payment of rent, Schedule B is relating to immovable property, Schedule C is on professional contract, commission or brokerage payments exceeding 50 lakh by individual HUF not liable to audit. It is not, may not be applicable for the salaried individual. That's why I have not covered in detail, but I have listed here. Schedule D is on the virtual digital assets. So right, what is the form 141 contains? It is a part. It is covered in part A and B. Part A, it covers the particulars of the deductor, name, address, PAN, contact details, and nature of transactions, whether it is rent or the immovable property by way of commission, brokerage, or virtual digital asset. That covers the part A. Part B, it is the transaction details relating to all the four categories. You have to provide the required details over there. Then part 3 is, it is summary of transaction and details of tax, interest, and fee that will get covered. So fourth, it is a declaration which you have to make before submitting the form. So details, what are the details which are required, documents or details which are required for filing the form number 141? It is PAN details of the deductors and deductees, address, mobile number, and email ID of both the parties. Transaction specific details, details of payment made, credited, rent amount, or the due for Schedule A, property value and date for Schedule B, nature of service and amount for Schedule C, type of virtual digital asset, date of transfer, consideration value, and mode of transfer, payment, Schedule D. So you have to gather all these information, document, and then go to the income tax portal, and then select form, new form 141, and then fill all the required details, and make the payment of TDS amount collected, and then submit the form. So that's the to simplify and consolidate in one form. All the three, four forms have been clubbed into one form 141. Thank you, viewers, for patiently being with me till the end of the episode. And thank you for listening and taking benefit of the points what we have discussed to comply with the TDS provisions. So ensure you follow and understand all the points what we have discussed. If you are entering into the any of the transaction, please ensure you deduct the required amount as TDS, and then deposit with the government to ensure you comply with the TDS provisions on those transactions. So till we meet again, I'll come back with the new episode with more updates on the income tax for the salaried class. Thank you.